Money, Power, and Politics. Good morning, Baltimore. This is Robert DeShield along with my co-host Hassan Barnes and with you again for another edition of Money, Power, and Politics. Before I turn the mic over to my good friend and colleague, Attorney Barnes, I want to say just a couple of things. This is not a show for entertainment. This is a program where we try to inform and enlighten you. And I understand that some of you may think that we overemphasize certain topics like Trump. I don't know how you do that, but if you're looking for entertainment, turn elsewhere. We are trying to attract viewers who are willing to listen, although you may have a different opinion. That doesn't matter. But we hope that your opinion is based upon fact, not supposition, assumption, or rumor. Uh, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Hassan.
Let me jump in. So we're here to educate, but education is entertainment. When you go, well, maybe I'm a nerd and the geek, so I like documentaries. It's educational, but it's entertaining. I like Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's very, very entertaining to me. Anything he talks about, black holes and those kind of things are entertaining. We can be both, and the goal is for people to learn and more information and to glean more information, and hopefully at some point to learn how to improve. It's more than just talking about things, but also finding solutions. We've talked over the past few weeks about all kind of issues, Trump-esque around. The goal is to start giving some solutions and find some middle ground. You can't find a solution to things without knowing what things are. You can't find a way out without knowing the barriers that are keeping you locked in. So we're hoping that we give you a better, more well-rounded idea as to things going on in your life. Certainly, we talk about the local perspective in Baltimore and the state perspective of Maryland, but even nationally. Some of the issues we deal with in Baltimore, people deal with in Detroit, they deal with in Chicago. I think it's important to shed light on it and have a conversation. I want to talk today about Job Corps. Many people out there who see this either know someone who's been in Job Corps or have been in Job Corps themselves or seen the signs for Job Corps. Job Corps was started for the purpose of helping people, youth in undeserved communities or underserved communities, rather, give job training. The current administration, without saying the name, is looking to eliminate Job Corps. And there was a report by the DOJ, I think recently, not DOJ, maybe the Labor Department came out recently for the first time in a report saying essentially Job Corps, about 38% of people who go through finish. It costs them about $155,000 a year to pay for, or in total, it costs about $155,000 per person to go through Job Corps, and the job they get when they come out is about $15,000 a year. Now, there's an issue that people are saying, well, you shouldn't close it, and it doesn't make sense. And we have a local connection too. There's a Job Corps facility in Woodlawn that provides training to people locally. And without the facility, there'll be a hit to the community in Baltimore County, but Maryland writ large. There was a story, I think, in WBAL about it, listing all the advantages or disadvantages of Job Corps. The administration wants to cancel it. There's been a stay by a judge, I think, within the past 2 days. A judge has stated, and the court's position is, which has been my position the whole time, Bob, the administration is doing things that's been enacted by Congress. They don't have the innate authority to cancel a program that Congress have voted for and enacted. There is separation of powers. And so every time we see, not every time, many times we see the court push back on the administration, they pushing back on separating the powers. Like, hey, right or wrong, you guys can't do this. This Congress job. It's very funny to me. Congress has been silent on that. But we'll come back to that. For me, the issue of Job Corps, if the numbers are correct, if we were spending as taxpayers $155,000 per person to go through, only a third of people finish the program, and the one finish, their average salary is about $15,000, $16,000 a year. That's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem. If the goal is to somehow adjust and remedy the issues of poverty and help people who have limited ability to gain employment, $15,000 a year isn't a job. That's not a salary. That's not a wage. I'm not sure what you're training for. I can't imagine what you're training me for, and I'm getting $15,000. If you're spending $155,000 of taxpayers' money, and the outcome of that is me getting a job making $15,000 a year, somebody, the math isn't math. And so and Bob's going to get on me again about the issue of conservative versus liberal. The Job Corps is a liberal idea. It's a liberal policy or liberal agency in terms of what they do. That can't work. That can't work.
Well,
$15,000 a year, Bob,
it
for an adult.
it raises the fundamental issue of family values and support for the family. And what does it mean? You know, people talk about. I see the report today. 139,000 jobs added. Well, if the job doesn't pay enough money to support your family, yeah, it's a job, but it's certainly not the kind of job that most of us envision when we get up in the morning and go to work. We get up in the morning and go to work thinking that we're going to be able to earn enough money to support our families. And far too many cases, that means not having one job, but having two jobs plus a gig, a job on the side. That is the product, that result is the product of capitalism as it is practiced in this country and perhaps even around the world. But along with the unfortunate consequences of not just Job Corps, but most of the work training programs have this exact same result. I recall some years ago, there was a governor's council on privatization. I think Paris Glendening was the governor. And one of the question was, should certain government functions be privatized? And in the course of doing that, we had occasion, I was chairman, we had the occasion to investigate the prison work system. I forget what the name of it was at the time, but I think it's Correctional Enterprises now. But you know, within the Maryland prison system, there are various training programs where, particularly up at Hagerstown, there's meat processing, there's furniture manufacturing, there's many other things in addition to what most people think is just processing licensing or manufacturing license plates. So the question was, and these training programs presumably are to allow people when they are released from prison, which most will be, to go out and get employment. But the employment is not in the things that they've been trained on inside the facility. The only jobs available are low-paying, menial-paying jobs, McDonald's and that sort of thing. And I don't have anything against anybody who works at McDonald's. Don't say that. But I had the idea back at the time. I said, well, why don't we recreate outside the fence, so to speak, the same sort of manufacturing facilities that these people, these inmates, have been trained on while they're incarcerated? So that, and let's set it up so that after a period of time, after they work for a period of time, they can in fact become owners of the new businesses, and those businesses are under competent management until these people gain those management skills along with the technical skills that they've acquired. Well, nobody was interested in that. Nobody was interested in creating a program that allowed people, the inmates, to actually use the skills they've already obtained to perform services for which they might retrieve or receive, the kind of wages to support their family. They only were concerned about reducing recidivism by reporting, that they have a job, any kind of job. I remember years ago when one of the former mayors of Baltimore, I think it was Mayor Rawlins, Stephanie Rawlins Blake. I was on the transition committee. So one of her goals was to, of course, every elected politician, they want to increase jobs. Well, the person that she was appointed to lead the city's job training program told us that according to statistics, the amount of money that a person would have to make in Baltimore City to be able to support their families was somewhere between $20 and $25 an hour. Yet the training programs that they were funding were for jobs that are just a little more than half that. So that is a problem.
We have to get serious about if we want to tackle the issues of crime in urban communities, and Job Corps isn't only for urban communities. It's in communities where, like West Virginia, and places where employment is scarce and young people. I think the age range for Job Corps is between 16 and 24, where they're able to get job training. It seems to me we have professions like plumbers, electricians, carpenters, home builders. It's all kind of jobs where you can give training for that pay more than $15,000 a year. or even $20 an hour. It has to be. And I know the unions are involved in many other jobs. You go to all the government contractors; they fill the union jobs. But it should be a way. And I don't care whether we have trained people to get them in unions, but it can't be training people for a job where you need 2 or 3 jobs to take care of your family, because you won't. The reason, and it's funny, the graduation rate is a third. Who's surprised if they tell you, hey, we can put you for a training program, and when you get out, you make less money you did than you could have gotten on your own? Who's going to stay?
Right.
I mean, you can go out off the streets with a diploma and get a job making more money than $15,000-$16,000 a year. So someone training me to make that much money, to me, seems a bit ridiculous. And I'm sure the people in the program may feel the same way. Now, they may go there. And the thing is, I've dealt with Job Corps for years in prior jobs and prior professions. I've dealt with people in Job Corps. They've all been very bright and talented people. They may have some challenges that and maybe suffering from a situation where they aren't financially independent, but they haven't been people who couldn't work and couldn't learn, didn't understand. They were average everyday people. So the fact, if the program is for people who have typically poor folks who want to get job training, you gotta do a better job at it. The administration is going around cutting programs, and people are crying foul. But when you dig into the program, it's far too often the program are doing things that most Americans wouldn't agree with. You tell the average American that we're going to spend millions of dollars training people to get them a below minimum wage job, they will think you're crazy.
Because we've been taught to deal in sound bites and not realities and not facts. For example, in addition to the loss of the funding for Job Corps, you know that the big, beautiful bill also, if it passes the Senate, would result in millions of people, mostly the same people we've been talking about, losing their health care coverage. Because they would be eliminated effectively from Medicaid, which is in fact a state program. But nevertheless, they would lose nearly millions of people who obtain coverage under what's been referred to as the Affordable Care Act, or the Obamacare, as it's known to, would lose that coverage and lose any kind of health care if this big, beautiful bill passes. And I'm that really hit home to me yesterday. I got a call from a lady who was referred to me for legal advice, and her problem was that she was scheduled for an appointment at this healthcare facility, apparently, and missed the appointment, they say. And before this was a lady who was a survivor of breast cancer and was continuing her treatment for pain management. And so she was told that they would not schedule her for a new appointment that she desperately needed unless she paid the $25 for the missed appointment that she said she didn't miss. And she called for legal advice. Well, 2 things happened. One, it really hit home to me that there are people in this, and she said to me, Mr. DeShiel, I know you don't know me, but listen, I don't have $25 to give these people. I barely have enough money to keep a roof over my head and food for my children. I just don't have it. And that hit me, that there are people, too many people, who living day to day, not just hand to mouth, because they don't have enough in their hand to reach the mouth. That there are too many people whom $25 makes a whole lot of difference in their lives. I told the lady, I don't have any legal advice for you, but I'll give you the $25 so you can continue your medical treatment. Well, there are too many people like that are big. And Trump, and I apologize for those who think I'm using his name too often, but the fact of the matter is, he is the one promoting this. He and his entourage, his people, don't give a damn about anybody but themselves. And that's a fact.
So I'll say this. Anyone watching right now, any questions you have about the big, beautiful bill, put in the chat, put in the question line. We'll hear more about this over the next coming weeks, because we're hearing more things trickle out as they're going through the process. I'm not sure whether it'll get passed. My co-hosts think it may get passed. The big, beautiful bill does multiple things. One, it will reduce people's benefits in terms of SNAP benefits or aid to women and children. And I've heard about reducing the age of kids that are receiving benefits. The reality is, those things are safety nets. They've been painted with a brush of being Black programs, meaning programs that give poor Black women on welfare, basically. The reality is, the programs are for Americans. Most people on welfare, on SNAP, on benefits aren't African American. Again, we're a small part of the population. We can't possibly make up the majority of people receiving benefits. So people will receive the benefits. I'm always interested to hear from people, and it's hard to get information from the Midwest and from the South and from different parts of the country that may not be as liberal as Maryland is. Because from what I've seen, other populations are following and they support the administration. I mean, the House went through and they voted, and they were willing to vote for the Big Beautiful Bill, even though quite a few of the Congress people, their constituents, would suffer under it. They still voted for it. So people are following suit, and people are saying, "Hey, the president doing what the people wanted to do." So maybe there's a big push and big pull for reducing government spending on the people, which is interesting. You would assume they wanted to reduce spending on things like the military, but they're reducing spending on the people, and they're doing it a couple ways. One, the Big Beautiful Bill has all kind of things in place to reduce spending, whether it's food stamps, whether it's SNAP benefits. But they're going along, even the idea of firing federal employees. Neil deGrasse Tyson was on. He was talking about if you fire every single federal employee, it makes up like 4% of the budget. So every single employee gets fired, which means no work can happen. Forget about that part. But every single employee is fired, and we save 4%. It's untenable. It doesn't make any sense. So all these things they're doing, they pick at scraps, trying to stop benefits for people, women and children who may be poor and needy, firing people in government service who've been working in the country and supporting the country. None of those things will get you any real savings. And the Big Beautiful Bill is going to do what? It's going to increase the budget.
It's never been about how much. It's always been for what and who and who will benefit from it. Those have been the questions. You know, we're not. They talk about reducing spending. Well, you might reduce spending if you take a picture today, but what you're really doing is what the Congressional Budget Office said. You're creating $2.4 trillion of debt that somebody's got to pay in the future. So you're not really reducing spending at all. What you're doing is kicking the can down. In fact, you're increasing the need for future revenues because of the tremendous amount of additional debt that's being added.
So once I'm going to jump to that point. To our viewers, that means in real terms, our government is firing people and reducing benefits for the purpose, and ultimately they're going to raise taxes or have to raise taxes to pay for things that don't benefit you. Again, they're firing people, government workers, they're reducing benefits with support for people in our community to pay for things that don't benefit you. That's kind of the exact opposite of what the government is here for. The exact opposite.
Well, yeah, because in my view, at least, the government was created to the billionaires and the oligarchs don't need government. Government was created to protect common people like you and me from the billionaires and the oligarchs. And by the way, you're talking about people that benefit. How about this new travel ban from these 11 or 12 countries, all of whom happen to be places where primarily Black people reside? But this is South Africa, Sudan. Haiti.
Start with South Africa. So we just had some immigrants come from South Africa, and Trump want to fast track them to come in.
Those are Afrikaners. Those are white. Those are white South Africans. They're okay as refugees. They're being persecuted in the land that they stole. but the travel ban applies mostly to people that look like us.
Does the ban say South Africa only if you're Black? Does it say Africans are fine? But so they have multiple. So for our viewers, we said before, multiple racial choices in South Africa based on apartheid. The more Black you are, the less rights you have. So they have Blacks, which someone who'll be like me. Both parents are Black. They have colored people who are mixed race. You could be Indian and Black or white and Black. I believe, and they're called colored. They historically had voting rights, whereas the Blacks didn't. During apartheid, and then you had different iterations of different races in South Africa, which is an interesting concept, different than we have here. The Afrikaners are white settlers from Dutch origin who basically, for doing apartheid, controlled South Africa. They were the ones who wrote the laws. They were the ones who owned the property and had the wealth. After apartheid, which means the legalized separation or segregation of people, based largely in part on separate equal in America, after apartheid, they still maintain most of the property, most of the wealth in the country.
It is inconceivable that you have the richest continent in the world ever created in terms of its natural resources, gold, cobalt, which you couldn't talk on this telephone with that cobalt, GP, everything else. The richest continent in the world in terms of its natural resources, and at the same time, the poorest people in the world in the same place. Because the riches, the natural resources have been exploited and the people have been left impoverished.
I'll say this: we have in this country, in the diaspora people outside of Africa. They may be recent people recently left and populated the European world or the Western world, or people who come historically. The West, particularly America and South America, Caribbean, people in those countries and in those continents are descendants of slaves. They've come through slavery and they left Africa a long time ago. There's been separation in people. The blacks in the Western world, America, Haiti, the Caribbean, and blacks in Africa, there's been separation. They were physical labor. They were manpower taken from the continent and brought here. For some reason, the idea is that blacks here are different because they went through slavery, as if there's been no supremacy on the continent. And certainly I have talked to many Africans about this as an intellectual exercise. The idea that blacks here are descendants of slaves and we have a certain level of brutality that we face where our African brothers didn't face, the reality is that countries, whether you talk about Nigeria, whether you talk about Ghana, whether you talk about Somalia, you talk about Ivory Coast, talk about South Africa, their countries have been, Kenya, have been decimated by other countries, primarily white countries. They've come in and they've pulled and they've extracted resources and they've left nothing but poverty behind. And examples of that, we see now Dangote, I think the world's richest man, recently did an oil refinery in Nigeria. Now, the idea that Nigeria hadn't had an oil refinery to me is absurd, considering how much oil Nigeria has had, and most of the wealth of Nigeria is from the oil money. And the fact they couldn't get a refinery has been outrageous. But you had the Biafran War. Like, we've had wars in countries based on racial differences that were set up by the European powers, whether the Igbo and the Yoruba in Nigeria, but other countries where you talk about the Houthis and the Tutsis, in Rwanda, where the Hutus and Tutsis, where they fought based on segregation that was set up by European powers. There's been a consistent effort in the continent to pull things out. You go to places like Nigeria and you see Lebanese own a lot of businesses, and it's to the point where there's differences in the blacks in America and the blacks in the continent, but they really aren't. The issue they have are one and the same. There was no chattel slavery the same way there was here as Africa, but there was domination, there was oppression. We see what's going on with Ibrahim Toure and him kicking the French out of his country. Yeah. And the idea that he's made has been very clear to me. And I don't know all the details of how I believe he came to power via coup, which is troubling. However, from all instances, it seems like he's doing the right thing for the people. I'm not on the ground, I don't know the details. But the French government has been angry that the African powers are saying, hey, you can't be here anymore. The government in France has been extracting resources and minerals and wealth from the continent our whole lifetime, and probably since slavery. And they are arrogant about it. No, they take it from them. They say, we take it. You should be happy we took it from you.
Well, look what happened in Haiti. I mean, you know, Haiti was the first, and so the first African dominated country to obtain its independence.
Slavery, yeah.
But before that independence, the French, by the U.S. and other European countries, allowed them to be charged an enormous amount of money in exchange for their own independence. I think they finally paid off the debt sometime in the 2000s, even. I don't know exactly when. But now this administration has added salt to the wound of poverty created by colonization of the motherland, because now you might know, now they're going to charge you a fee for sending money home. In other words, the people who are here in this country working, many people, Mexicans and others and Africans from Nigeria will get hit hardest, by the way. But now the government is going to charge a fee on the amount of money that you send back home to try to help the people, your family and friends who are living in poverty. I mean, this government has no shame. But anyway, let's switch to a little bit and talk about something a little closer to home. Let's talk about the oil spill in Fells Point. What's going on there?
So, I think Wednesday, Hopkins reported to Baltimore City government that one of their contractors spilled oil, I guess, in the ground. I guess it went through the sewer system. They spilled, I'm not sure how many gallons of liters of oil, but it was spilled, and there was a noticeable tinge of red in the water in Fells Point from the oil spill. I happened to see a clip of Mayor Brandon Scott, and I saw Governor more behind it. A bunch of people looking very official in the picture. They had nice sharp toots on and nice tailored shirts on and they're very sharp. I was trying to figure out what was going on. And they were saying it was a spill. I thought it was a barge spill, or I thought it was a spill as of that we need to have all hands on deck. I guess it's local politics, local news. The spill, I was trying to compare it to some other spills we had in the region before. I don't think it really compares. So there was a spill. It is an environmental issue because whenever you have oil in the pipes, oil in the water, it's an issue for animals. Whether I think they recovered and saved some turtles and some birds, but mainly and Mayor Scott was very clear to say the drinking water. I don't know why anyone would thought it would affect the drinking water. If anyone ever tries to drink the water out of the harbor or out of Fells Point, we're in trouble. But the spill wasn't as big as other spills. I think in 2000 we had the Chalk Point spill, which was 140,000 gallons of oil leaked into the water, and in 1970 we had the Colonial Pipeline spill, which was 30,000 gallons. This spill, I think, it's 2,000 gallons of diesel spilled into basically into the harbor. So there will be some interruptions local. This is local news, so we do both local, which is Baltimore, statewide, and national. This is our local segment, I guess. Locally, people in that Fells Point may have some street closures. We may see some business interruption. I couldn't imagine eating outside in the Fells Point and look out the water and see red scent and oil. I may not be hungry anymore. But it's a problem. Whenever you have, I can't fathom how a contractor spilled 2,000 gallons of anything into the sewer system. I don't know what would have happened where they just happened to leak that much oil. And I guess the question is going to be is who's going to pay for it? Whether Hopkins is going to come and say it was our fault, we're going to pay for it. The contractor is going to pay for it. But the amount of man time and manpower that's being spent for this, somebody should pay for it. It's insurance.
Oh yeah, somebody eventually will, and quite frankly, and we won't know probably for years to come the effect of the spill on the ecosystem of the harbor. I mean, I remember a year or two ago, somebody was touting that the harbor was finally safe enough to swim in. I think didn't Mayor Scott jump in along with some other officials at one time? I think I remember seeing that. But in any event, certainly they were touting the harbor as a safe place to swim. I would never believe it. And if I'm in there, it's because somebody pushed me. but what about the harm on the ecosystem going forward? I mean, we already know that there's no climate change according to the administration, the federal administration, that is. So what are they predicting yet? What effect that might have?
They haven't. Hopkins has given a statement they're willing to pay for any remediation. The reality is we don't use the harbor as a fishery. We don't fish out the harbor. We don't get food from the harbor. But however, I would say this: the current administration at City Hall, Brandon Scott and his administration, they have been working towards cleaning the harbor up. The harbor started off under. Well, the harbor's been around forever, but what it is now, a place where people go for entertainment, to hang out, to have time with their family. After COVID, it's been a ghost town. Before COVID, it was much more lively. I know Brandon has a plan to redevelop the harbor, but the harbor is a place, and it's the example that other cities started to use to bring tourists in. I was always amazed as a kid when people come to Baltimore, go to the harbor, and I couldn't figure out what it was coming for. But in other places, they didn't have a harbor. So you see the National Harbor in PG County is modeled after our harbor. They did the idea that you can use a harbor, which is an area where there's water and you can build businesses and restaurants around it, have a place where people want to come and enjoy. There's impact on the community because around the harbor now is condos. They have all those expensive condos, which I don't know who living in those condos. Anyone who's watching who lives there, reach out to us. I don't know who lives there. But there are condos all around the harbor now, and they're building and developing it in a way where they're trying to bring people into Baltimore. And for citizens of Baltimore, the first time in, 50 years or maybe more, Baltimore is on decline, and we have population increase from last year. And using the harbor has been one of those engines of growth the city has used. So we don't know the ultimate outcome. I'm pretty sure it will be some, but we won't know for many more years. But again, we don't use the harbor as a fishery. People don't fish, they don't crab. The issue going to be is how far down the Chesapeake Bay will the oil go, right? So once it gets down, then it's a problem. We don't use the harbor for fisheries, but we use the other parts of the bay for fishery and for crab and for outdoor boating and for family time, and that may be a bigger issue. We haven't heard from that, but that may be a big issue if they don't get it under control fairly soon.
All right. Well, I promised the viewers and those in the listening audience, this was the last time today you're gonna hear me say the name Trump, and you watch it now.
I don't know. I need a jar on the table with the money in because I can't be certain. I can't be certain.
I gotta talk about this feud between Trump and his boy Musk and the Musketeers. What's going on there?
So we've heard, we talked earlier, the big beautiful bill and the cuts that it's making to programming for citizens, whether it's Medicare and Medicaid cuts that may affect many people, whether it's SNAP benefits or food stamps. But it also will affect other business owners, and people like Trump are upset because his EVs may be affected. Trump came out with a statement a couple of days ago saying that the big beautiful bill was a horrible idea. It was
Musk.
Musk came out, not Trump.
Yeah.
It was a horrible idea, and that people in Congress knew it was wrong, and they shouldn't have voted for it. And we're going to see how wrong they were very soon. That's a very interesting statement. So he didn't say Trump was wrong, which is that he didn't say Trump was bad. He said Congress knew better, and they knew the bill would hurt American people. Now, I am not the biggest Elon Musk fan. Let me say that again. I am not the biggest Elon Musk fan. People give him credit for being a genius and he's so smart. Maybe. I don't know that to be true. I'm sure people are right. I haven't seen it. He owns a bunch of companies. He's probably the world's richest man.
What could you do with a $425 million federal grant? Essentially, which is what $465 million federal grant, which is what Elon Musk got from Obama.
So I'll say this to our viewers, and I'll say this in the kindest way possible. If I had that kind of money in my company, you would not see me. You would not hear my name. You not see my face or hear my voice. Bob would know me. We'll talk. No one would see it. So if I had that kind of money, I wouldn't be on TV running around.
You can make a successful business out of that.
Hey, I would do the same thing Elon Musk has done. Elon Musk has made multiple businesses and had multiple successes. But he also has something that most Black businesses don't have: capital.
Yeah.
He's always had capital from leaving PayPal, and this is no way to diminish Elon Musk. He did great work at PayPal. They made a bunch of money and were successful. Not only him, but the whole PayPal mafia, they call themselves. They all made a bunch of money and they did really well, and they supported each other. One thing we talk about in business, they had the PayPal mafia, which is people who started at PayPal who left there and built other businesses, and they committed each other. They would support each other's businesses, and they gave each other money to start businesses. So whether it was Elon Musk or Peter Thiel, or it's a whole litany of people who in the PayPal mafia. But just going back in terms of the breakdown, when Elon Musk decided to join the administration, he said, "I'm gonna head up Doge. I'm gonna help the administration." Everyone said, every pundit I can think of said, "How long will this last?" There's nowhere in the world these people will be able. These people, meaning Trump and Elon, can get along long enough. It's going to be a fiery crash. They both have very particular personalities. That layman terms, they both are assholes. No one said that, but that's what they meant. They kept saying, "Oh, they kind of prickly, they kind of individualistic." But they meant they both are assholes. Now, I'm not saying the president's an asshole or Elon Musk is an asshole. I'm saying the pundits said that,
right? And
they suggested that their personalities couldn't sustain. Elon Musk left the administration. I think he left not because he wanted to. I think he liked the power, but his financial empire is coming down around him because of his interaction with the administration, and he decided to walk away. And now he's outside the administration. He's seeing that him not being there is going to hurt his companies, and he won't have the control or the influence over Trump that he had before. I see this as inevitable. I see this as what should happen. We shouldn't have billionaires that close to power.
Well, let me correct something. It wasn't a $465 million grant. It was a loan, which I understand was repaid. But the problem that Musk has with the fall in value of Tesla stock is that he used the Tesla stock as collateral to borrow money to buy everything else he has. Yeah. He used the Tesla stock to support Starlink. He uses Tesla stock to support his other businesses. And so when the value of the Tesla stock falls, its value as collateral falls, which I'm sure, if I'm right, would trigger some other bad economic consequences. He may actually have to put up some cash, which would be a big problem. So things like the tariffs, which affect his ability to build Tesla, because the raw materials all come from other countries. We're subject to the tariffs across the board, if not the increased tariffs that Trump imposes on Monday, takes off on Wednesday, imposes on Friday, takes off on Saturday or Sunday. But one of the problems with this so-called big, beautiful bill, and it is big, it's 1,167 pages long, I think, is that apparently very few of the Republicans who voted for it ever read it. I mean, I'm hearing some pushback from folks who said, they go to the town halls, which they were encouraged not to attend because they're a place where people are going to be man truth and not gaslighting. But there's a lot of pushback from Republicans, and the only excuse for voting for some of these things now is that they didn't have time to read the bill. Admittedly, it didn't come to the floor until about 20 minutes at 11 in the evening, and wasn't voted on until sometime in the following morning. But that's hardly an excuse for somebody who's being paid the kind of money they're being paid and who has the kind of perks that they have to say, well, I voted for it and I apologize that I didn't read it first. I mean, that if you and I did that in the practice of law, we'd be disbarred.
I want to go back for a second for the Elon Musk thing, and you made a good point. I like Elon Musk companies. I'm not a Tesla person. I don't have a Tesla. I like the Boring Company. The Boring Company is a company he built. The idea is to be able to bore underground, to have transit underground. That's the idea of having a boring train or some kind of transit device between DC and New York, and they'll be much faster. I think the idea is incredible. I think it's great. If we can do it, I think we should do it. I like Starlink. I like the idea of having satellites that can in space so that we can give internet service to other places in the world, like Africa, where it's harder to get the lines. I think it helps the economy jump a couple steps faster. And the reality is, so for all my small business owners out there, when you are a small company, people won't take your current company as collateral the same way. They won't take your plumbing company as collateral to buy 4 or 5 other companies. They won't. But for big companies like Tesla, we'll use stock for this and stock for that. And they won't call. Tesla stock has been falling down. We haven't heard one company or one bank do call on his loans for the other companies, and they likely won't. So for you, if you had your plumbing, you A&A plumber, and use the money from your equity in your plumbing company to buy an airline, and the plumbing company went under, your airline's gone the next day. The company start going down, you can get a phone call from the bank and say, hey, we see you have half as many guests or customers as you had last year. We had to have a conversation. By the time you get to talk to the bank, they're already at the airline with security guards and red tape saying this is gone. So for Elon Musk, it's different. I want to point that out. The bigger the company is, I recall when I was young and I was trying to get into stocks and I was trying to do some investment, and I kept saying Amazon, I like it, but it's losing money. It lost money every year for years and years and years. And guess what? They kept funding it. No one called the loans. They kept funding it. Our businesses don't get funded that way. If we lose money for 1 year, that's it. We out of business. We calling our mama and our father and our uncles and our cousins. We doing fish fries and fundraisers. So keep in mind, there's difference in business, and I want to highlight that often throughout our show so people can see there's differences. There's ways around it, and there's opportunities for creativity. But even beyond that, so going back to the big beautiful bill, I'll say this: we have politicians who are in Congress, whether it's Congress or whether it's Baltimore City local politicians. They're there for their constituents. They should be talking about things and voting based on what their constituents want. I don't know how it's democratic for you to vote on something you haven't actually read. But if it something to you, say, hey, bill, how many pages long, vote for it. What am I voting on? The president said so. So you're there for your constituents and you're voting on things based on what someone told you to do versus what's going to be in your people's best interest. It was no issue where they couldn't take time and read the damn bill. And not only do they have people, not only are they there to do that job, they have staffers. We pay for them to have employees to do things for them. Not one employee, not two. They have a whole office of people to do things. They have different divisions in Congress where they can get things done. So they could have brought the bill in and say, separate it in 10 ways. All you guys go through it and advise me to what it said.
I don't believe
they didn't do that.
Yeah, I don't believe that there's a single member in Congress that could read 1,200 pages between 10:40 p.m. and 3 a.m.
But why the time constraint? Why the time constraint? Why couldn't they say, take a week and read the bill and come back to us and we can vote?
Well, because Mike Johnson, the speaker, had self-imposed a deadline of Memorial Day for getting the bill out of Congress.
So everybody listening, this isn't a legally required timeline. They're doing it fast because they want to.
Right.
That's it, because we said so.
Mike,
No real reason.
That's right. Mike Johnson, it's a self-imposed deadline. He self-imposed deadline of Memorial Day, and that's why he pushed it through to keep his promise to somebody. But you get. I'll give you three guesses. I can't because I made a promise I wouldn't use that word again. So you're not going to trick me in the.
We have the speaker of the House saying, "Hey, we must go forward." I told the president, even though the members hadn't had opportunity to read it, it's not democratic. It's not what democracy is. They're there to vote, and they may still have voted for it. They may still say we want to do this. It's more good than bad. That's fine. But the idea that you have a vote and you vote for something you have no idea what it is, and not on a few facts here and there, most of the bill they have no idea what it is. So people come out already and say, "Oh, if that wasn't there, I wouldn't have voted for it." Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I don't even like saying her name loud. She came out, "Oh, that wasn't there. I wouldn't have voted for it if I knew that." It's multiple members have come out and say, now they know what's in the bill, they wouldn't have voted for it otherwise. Well, you probably should have read the bill. And if Mike Johnson, I want to get this out at this time. So what, Mike? All right, Mike, ain't happening. They can say no, we're not voting for it. They can say no. He can't force them to actually get it done. They did it based on politics instead of based on what their constituents.
And it only passed by one vote. I mean, this whole Hatfield McCoy thing. You know, if it's Democrats, I'm against it. If it's Republican, I'm for it, no matter what it says, even whether I've read it or not. I mean, that division, that artificial division, that division that separated people and caused supposedly intelligent people to set aside the intellectual powers, even their moral commitments, the moral principles, and stick to the party line just because that's what King him.
I had an idea. Okay. You're in Congress. You get the bill to vote on. You can drop in ChatGPT and say, "I'm a senator from Kentucky. How will this bill affect my constituents?" I guarantee you, ChatGPT will come back with an answer in less than a minute. AI will come back with an answer in less than a minute.
Why do I need that when I've already been told what to do? I mean, look. If it's Biden is wrong, now I want to investigate whether or not he should have told the American people that he was in cognitive decline or that he had some form of cancer. I want an investigation of that because what's the bottom line? The bottom line is he was never really the president in the first place. You know they stole the election. You know that we had an overwhelming majority. You know we had more people in the clips than Obama. You know that we had the biggest, the best of whatever there is. You know there's going to be a great parade on my birthday, June 14th or whenever it is. And you know, but let's talk about something we don't know. Why?
So if you hear my co-host rant and rave about Biden, the administration has been on a campaign to diminish President Biden in a way that's been, in my mind, unprecedented. Even before the issue of the cancer, and now they're saying basically AIDS, the same thing they said about Bush actually, they're saying AIDS were making decisions for Biden without him knowing about it. They were deciding things for him as the president, and he wasn't doing it himself. They said the same thing about Bush and Cheney, that at some point Bush got sick, and I think came out actually was true. And Cheney for a short amount of time was actually the person in charge, but they're saying in a much more expansive way that Biden was basically incompetent, the aides were doing things for him, and they basically usurped the power of the president in a way that's been that should be looked into, and possibly is grounds for additional investigation and or sanction of them and or Biden as the president. There's been a preoccupation with Biden in this administration. That's true. Technical issues going on, but there's been a preoccupation with the current administration, the Biden administration. My co-hosts here seem to think because they want to delegitimize President Biden as the president. I think it's because the people around Trump don't like Democrats and don't like the idea that Biden was ever the president. They don't think he was qualified to be the president. They don't think he did anything for the American people that he should have done, even more so than Obama. Although they don't like Obama, Obama operated with an air of intelligence and reasonableness, where Biden did things and he looked feeble. He, in real time, and I'll say this, when Biden was falling up and downstairs every other interview, I was questioning his ability myself. Not only his physical ability, because your body can come and go. I was questioning his mental ability. He was in places where he seemed like he didn't know where he was. His wife was holding him up by his back like a puppet. He wouldn't do press conferences. I was wondering in real time, as a citizen of the country, whether the president was actually able and capable to maintain, and they're using that idea. If I thought it, I'm sure they thought it. they're running with that idea, and they're going to find every way they can to diminish his legacy as a president.
Well, you and I know we've had presidents in wheelchairs.
Yes.
You and I know we as presidents with all kinds of physical and some kind of intellectual or neurological problems, like Ronald Reagan. We know that I don't recall there ever being. I haven't read of there ever being an investigation when they're no longer in office, even of what their condition was when they were in office. And it's not just whether he improperly delegated presidential authority, but it's also whether he improperly used the auto pen to sign the pardons. But let's talk about something on a little lighter thing. And I have to turn this over to you because you're a little bit younger than me. What is going on in this Sean Diddy trial when the judge is threatening to have him removed from the courthouse because of his so-called interaction with the juries? What's going on there?
So there has been a claim of inappropriate. I don't know the details of the claim, actually. I know there's a claim that jury tampering was the claim. That's a big claim. If you're in court and the judge is accusing a party of witness tampering or jury tampering, I don't know. That's not common. That's a separate hearing, right? You stop the case and say, "Hey, we got to figure out what's going on." You don't continue going forward if there's actual evidence of tampering. Now, I don't know whether he was giving googly eyes to people. I have no idea what they're claiming he did. I was waiting to hear here. Oh,
is that tampering? If I look at you with an evil face, is that a threat? So much so that the judge would order me removed from the courtroom?
And typically, no, you and I both have done trials, and our clients may look all kind of ways at the jury.
Right.
Not to be intimidating.
I've looked all kinds of ways.
not to be intimidating. People get angry. A person fighting for their life in court typically don't look the best. They're not smiling at you. They're not
much to smile
about.
No, right?
The look on their face isn't always pleasant. So you typically wouldn't have a judge sanction the person or even mention jury tampering for a look on the face or a smile at the jury.
What more could he have been doing? I mean, he's sitting there, the security all around. What more? He never left his seat, apparently. What
I have no idea. I've only heard of witness tampering when people have actually reached out to witnesses directly, whether it's people on the street saying something. So if a defendant has been in court and their relative may see a witness or see a juror and talk to them in the hallway, or the defendant, I've had time where defendants have been in shackles, they've been taken to the hall, and jurors walk by and things were said to the jury that way. Then that's been cause for the court to get involved. Like, oh, whoa. You talking to the jury, let's have a conversation. What did you say? Is it inappropriate? Should we repanel the jury? Because now there may be a threat of violence or harm. Or I've seen cases where you find out people in the jury are from the same neighborhood. And certainly in Baltimore, it's a very small city. People in the jury are from the same neighborhood as the defendant, and it wasn't disclosed in Vardir. Those kind of things may be with the tampering. Or a person on the jury is dating someone who's relative to the defendant. And it's communication back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Those I've seen that with the tampering. But the Sean Diddy Combs trial, I have no idea. But what I'm interested in this case because I feel like the federal government is handling this case in a way I haven't seen them operate before. Normally, they seem much more organized, and the way case goes forward is much more clean. This one has been it's been too messy. It's been too sexualized. And I told the viewers earlier, they're using this like he's a big black buck, and they want to show that Black people are, and they're not saying Black people, but the idea is Black men are overly sexualized and they're overly aggressive and they're overly violent. So they painted a picture of an overly deviant sexual predator, and the picture they have is of a Black man. They have the guy on the stand with the Punisher, with the person that calls to the stand and he talked about his sexual prowess and taking pills to have sex, and it's been more about the details that don't go to the trafficking, it don't go to the racketeering. It don't go to the crime, but it goes to the ideal and the idea that Puffy or Sean Diddy Combs was a predator and the people around him were predators and they was preying on women in a way that wasn't appropriate. And I don't like it for that. Prove the case. Show me that he did trafficking. Give me the receipts. Show me the money he paid. Show me who he trafficked. Show me what happened, and that's it. I don't need to hear about him liking to watch guys with his girlfriend. None of that to me is trafficking. It doesn't go to the actual elements of the crime. It only goes to dehumanize him as a Black man.
So that whether he committed the crime or not, the world would be a better place without him.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I did look, he's a predator. They're peeing on people and they're doing stuff that most, and people will have all kinds of sexual kinks. And I'm not that conservative where I turn my nose down on someone based on their sexual preference. I don't care. I don't care what he does. And I'm not in the room. So whatever he does, I really can care less. As long as kids aren't involved, as long as people aren't there against their will. Consider adults do what they want to do. I really don't care. That part, to me, hence I don't even want to hear about it. So I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to people own sexual preferences or deviances, but those are personal things. We are getting past the point where we're forgetting that some things aren't meant for social consumption. Two people or three people or five people's preferences behind closed doors are just that they're private, discrete things that belong to them and shouldn't be thought of for conversation amongst the populace.
Well, we've had other people, prominent people, go on trial for alleged sexual related misconduct. What about Harvey Weinstein? That rape trial?
We had Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein. Yeah. I didn't hear anywhere near as many details for either one of them. Yeah. We heard about Bill Cosby giving women quaaludes and being a predator. It sounded horrible. It was nowhere near as graphic. We talk about Harvey Weinstein get women in the room for a casting couch, basically, and assaulting women. Women running out of the room after things were over. We still didn't hear the kind of detail. They go in and granular. They damn near giving you a picture of the act in real time. Of all the people involved in a way that I haven't seen, in a way that is so over the top. Because they demonized Harvey Weinstein, said he was a predator. They didn't have to show all the time that he did things or the graphic nature of it. They say he assaulted me. Okay, that's bad enough.
But speaking on that, do you think we're ever going to get a glimpse of Jeffrey Epstein's customer list?
Well, the administration, I think Pam Bondi has been asking for the information. I'm not sure her asked for real acts. She asked for it. I can't tell whether it was performative or she really wanted it. I know there's some YouTubers who are in the conservative space who are asking like we want to see it. Younger people. The young people are much more open. They want to see it because the people who were being abused were young people. The people in power don't necessarily want to come out because their friends and colleagues may be there. the younger YouTubers don't have any kind of vested interest in the people because they were young, so they wouldn't be involved. So they're curious, like we want to know who was involved. They were assaulting young women on an island. Weinstein seems so amazing and incredible. I'm surprised we haven't seen a documentary of it yet. He lured young women to an island for sexual activities with the wealthiest people in the world, the who's who. Epstein list of people who was around him, Bill Gates, but one of the princes in England. Certainly Bill Clinton has been there. Anybody you can think of going on the island has been to the island. Most Americans didn't know the island existed. So the who's who of the world. Stephen Hawking went to the island. Right. Stephen Hawking was formerly, he's passed now, the smartest person in the world. He's a paraplegic. What the hell was he doing on the island? They had him on the island. So Epstein reach was so far, and that's why we haven't seen the list come out. They have a list. They know who's there. Hence, we know some names, but they haven't come out, and it hasn't been. They've been pushing for it, but the administration has been very quiet about it. They've been much more open about going after Biden than listening to the list of people who were on the island. And with it, I suspect not Bill Clinton. I suspect Bill Gates. He divorced his wife recently, and that came out after it came up that he was on the island. Yeah. I suspect that because he was on the island, his wife said, "Oh, the island." With the kids, maybe it's time for us to call it a wrap because I can't get past that. I suspect that. I've had many, and I don't know if this is their case. I've had many clients of my firm. We do family law as well. I've had many clients come. One client in particular came to me and said her husband made an unwanted pass to her niece. Her niece was a minor child. And she said to me, like, Mr. Pond, if he had an affair with a woman, we could work on that. That's my niece. She's a child. Even the idea that she felt uncomfortable, I believe her. I can't be married to him anymore. And people have that view that if you cross the line with a child, that's a different level. It's not only you having an affair, it's that the person you are is compatible with the person I want to be around. I can't have my kids around you. I can't be around you. I don't trust you. And we treat pedophiles differently. Like in criminal law, if you kill somebody, you get out of jail, you're done. If you rape somebody or you could commit a sex crime, you get out of jail, they got your picture on walls. Right. You can't go in this school. You can't go play. You can't rent an apartment. So we see that differently. So given all that, I'm surprised that we haven't got more pushback on seeing the list and knowing who's there because we know there were children involved.
Speaking of people who've been released and that sort of thing, on the question of recidivism and going back a little bit even to job training and job availability, what I've seen over the years, is that there's all this concern there's a tremendous concern, and rightly, about inmates being released, returning citizens, and being able to get. But one of the biggest impediments I've seen is the fact that they've got a criminal record. I say that because we mentioned pedophiles and their name going in the registry and staying in it for 20 years or maybe for longer. But what about this thing about having to get expungement. I mean, it shouldn't the fact be that once you've paid your debt to society, once you've served your time, once you've completed your probation or parole, whatever post-release conditions that you had, shouldn't that be it? Or I mean, should that follow you to? Should you have to go through this additional process of trying to seek an expungement? In many cases, the expungement isn't even available based upon the type of crime. So the idea that someone can commit a crime and pay their debt to society, and then from that point walk the straight and narrow and be forgiven, not forgiven, but that consequence, that event no longer haunt them. That's really true. That's really false. Now if you're a pedophile and you are applying for a job in a daycare center, I get that. The employer should know that you have that record. But if you're applying for a job as a warehouseman, if you're applying for a job, why would the fact, or even the government service, even if you want to help DPW and collect trash, why should the fact that you were once convicted, having already completed your whatever you had to do, why should that be an impediment to you being able to get gainful employment?
One of the virtues of Job Corps is it decreases recidivism. And that's one of the reasons people like Job Corps, and it's been shown to do that. A couple of things we've seen around the country, they decriminalize drugs. I know in Maryland, they decriminalized the marijuana. There are many people from communities across the state that have marijuana convictions. I think it's time for those convictions to be able to be expunged. Because if you're saying this is not a crime anymore, why am I still walking around with a criminal record for doing something that 5 years ago was a crime? I mean, was a crime, but it's not a crime now.
Or 20 years ago.
20 years ago. But the idea that, keep in mind, employers can hire you whether or not you have a background or not. They choose not to. But most employers don't always mind hiring. The issue people have, from my clients who've been employers have issues with people who are fired for crimes of moral turpitude. So you fired for stealing, the bitch did not hire you. But I've had employers who they stop. I have many employers stop asking for the drug test for marijuana. They don't even want to drug. Don't even test. I don't even have to have the conversation about it. We ain't testing for marijuana anymore. Don't even have that on the panel. So that when you get tested, there's no question of whether or not you're a marijuana user because the employer don't care about it. They still will hire you. It's a cultural thing. Same when we change with marijuana, we have to get a change for employers to be willing to hire people for criminal backgrounds. There should be a mechanism for us to say, look, this person went to jail for whatever thing 10 years ago, they rehabilitated. They're open, they can do the job, give them a chance and not be pushed back. And the main pushback isn't legal, it's the employers.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, viewers and others, we've come to the end of another show. We hope you've found it informative. And to those who desire, yes, hopefully you found it somewhat entertaining as well. We'll be here again next Friday and every Friday, God willing, and the creek don't rise. Money, power, and politics. Enough is enough. Goodbye.
Take care, guys.